Вдягнеш тобі сукню на вечірку?
А, так у нас буде вечірка.
Звісно, буде.
Дай мені спочатку з ремонтом розібратись, бо мені ще твої сніжинки по всьому Києві шукати. Доця, що ти накрутила?
А твої скільки?
12.
Ось вона підросте. Ти ж мріяти, щоб вона поїхала десь.
Мене погано знаєш.
Я тебе дуже добре знаю.
Тихіше, врач!
Що інші роблять в моїй ситуації?
Hi, Christina. Nice to see you. I think we all just taken a moment to process everything. And I sort of felt myself very emotional at the very, very end of it. And I think this is the kind of film that you want to take a moment to digest and decompress. And it obviously hits you quite hard the more we get into the story and everything. So, well, congratulations on this very profound work and the character study and, you know, the authenticity of it and the very difficult subject matters that you've taken on here. So very well done, I think, from all of us here in the audience. I think I was first of all wondering about the family relationship here in the story. So, you know, we have an Anna who is a single mom. She also lives with her own mother and a sister, and she has her daughter. So it seems like the family is somehow this kind of pillar for her that gets crumbled at the very end, and it's like a very kind of big blow. So how do you think this family relationship and the presence of the family in Anna's value system matters?
It's funny, when you started saying about the family, I thought you're going to ask why are all the family members female? Because this is the question that I often get asked. And a lot of people actually say that, you know, I have made a feminist film, and if I'm actually making a statement against men or something like that. So I wanted, you know, kind of to get this out of the question. And I wanted to start from saying that the family as a unit for me was an inspiration from my own life, because I was also raised in a female family. It's not that all the characters were exactly the same as in my family, but also my parents divorced and I stayed with my mom, and it was a very I would say it was a typical thing for people of my generation, those who were growing up in the 90s, a very tough period for Ukraine. A lot of single mothers and a lot of, you know, mothers kind of with their grandmothers helping to raise the children. So as for your question about the crumbling of the family, of course, it's one of the, I mean, in general, the whole story of Anna is sort of a story of kind of like a roller coaster, and where, you know, with each step the situation just gets harder and harder for her, and there are more and more obstacles that are building up, and the family is just one of those stages for the story, one of the obstacles that she has to suddenly, the whole world around her is crumbling, and it's not just the family, it's also her love life, it's also her professional career, and most importantly it's her identity that is crumbling.
Yeah, I think I don't know, maybe for me personally, it wasn't as surprising that, you know, the institutions have failed, or that the lover didn't appear to be as kind of solid. But this sort of, I think this, what I'm interested in is this family dynamic, which seems already quite, you know, like everything sort of holds on to Anna, and she's the only one who is kind of pulling this family. And then you know, we sort of see how obviously she's just left alone. And but I think, like, is there something about you know, this idealization of family, or something that we kind of stick to them no matter what, and anything like that that you wanted to show?
Well, I mean, the characters, for instance, the relationship between Anna and her sister, that was kind of one of the core relationships in the story. And again, this is something that I took from my own life. This is something that I have witnessed in both of my parents, who are kind of the main providers for their own families. But what was important for me is to show that, I mean, I've noticed that a lot of the audiences who have watched the film, they react very negatively to Inga, the sister character. But on my side, I would say that I don't feel that she is a particular negative or evil character. You know, she is just very different to Anna. And while Anna is an idealist at heart, she sticks, at least she tries for a certain period of time, to stick to her principles. Inga is just very pragmatic and down to earth, and she simply tries to not to be emotional and to solve the situation. In a way, this relationship between Anna and Inga is also a metaphor for many things that are happening in my country, in Ukraine, because quite often we have to compromise, sticking to our principles, to just being pragmatic and surviving in this life. In the beginning, one of the inspiration for me to make this film was coming from my own realization that, you know, when I was a child, I was growing up, I was sort of, I thought that I knew what's right and what's wrong, and I knew which lines I'm not going to cross. And I had a sort of idealist image of myself when I'm going to grow up. But the reality is that when I grew up and when I kind of entered the real life, I realized that often as an adult, you have to compromise. And I feel like, in a way, obviously the film, you know, has a number of themes. One of the themes is corruption in the Ukrainian society. And I feel like this is a conversation that, you know, many of us have, the conversation between, you know, your principles and the pragmatic side of the life that you're leading.
In that kind of regard about, you know, the corrupt society and everything, what I was thinking is, do you think it matters that the environment that people grow up in and people who live in that society, that they sort of don't have a choice, because it sort of becomes commonplace, and even if you are guided by your own like principles of very kind of like idealist and stuff, like, but do you think that is the society sort of pressures everybody into that system?
I think so, in a way, yes. That sort of, I mean, it's a very difficult question, obviously. You know, and Ukrainian society is not the only society that's sort of trying to tackle this. You know, when I make films, I usually, you know, some directors, they know the answers to the questions, and, you know, when they're making a film, they know exactly what they want to say. For me, usually when I start working on a film, I'm trying to find the answer to a question that I don't know the answer to. So like through the process of making the film and through developing the film, I'm kind of slowly getting to this answer. So for me, I guess with this film, you know, the sort of the morality question, the corruption question was one of the things that I was trying to ask myself, because again, as I said before, you know, I would like to be this person who never does the wrong thing and who's always on the right side of the morality spectrum. But in reality, you know, if I'm honest, I'm not always that person. And I was sort of, and if you take the whole journey of Anna, in a way, it is a journey of a person who, it is a story of a fallen angel. It is a story of a person whose circumstances become stronger than her. And, you know, she's a woman who starts as a paramedic. She's a woman who starts as a doctor, you know, someone who's saving lives. And that's, and, you know, people who work as doctors are certain types of characters. And so to go from that to the point of, you know, killing another person, is a very big change, and it's a very big transformation. And I was interested in what kind of circumstances, what kind of pressure can make this kind of transformation. I don't have any, you know, particular answers for that. I think that each one of us has a different moral compass. And each one of us can take, you know, a different amount of pressure. It's very individual. What I was trying to do with this film, I really hope it worked. I was trying for every audience member to sort of ask these kind of questions to themselves and see, you know, what, you know, I was trying to make the audience be in the situation of Anna and ask, you know, what would I have done in these kind of situations?
And probably some answers would be quite surprising to some of us. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, there's a gentleman here.
Thank you very much for the film. This still isn't quite the question you were begging there, but you know, you mentioned about her being a single parent, and now you and I might be relaxed about that, but I just wonder whether I don't know anything about the Ukrainian legal system, but would that be so relaxed? Wouldn't they be asking that question, and wouldn't the lawyers be trying to get some absent father to you know, to sign away the consent? It just seems to be a question that would have got asked, and in the legal sphere, even if it wasn't by you and I.
To sign the consent, you mean in terms of the bribe money?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if her father was present, then yes. If it was a father who was, let's say, officially registered on her father and he was present in their lives, then of course, you know, he would be in the picture. But since we don't show who the father is, we don't really disclose the whole situation there. You don't know what really happened to him, but it's obvious that he's not in their lives, whether he's dead or he's just, you know, as it happens sometimes, it's a father who disappears in the very beginning of the relationship, and then he is not part of the life of the child, and he is I'm trying to figure out the phrase in English. He's basically his rights as a father are taken away from him. Then he wouldn't be in this picture. So they wouldn't need to ask for his permission.
Thank you. There was another question over there. Yes.
Thank you very much for the film. It is a very touching story. I wanted to ask, what do you think Anna is doing now, and what she is doing in 2022? How did she feel? And like, how has her life changed after the war, full-scale invasion started? Thank you.
So judging by your question, I can give you a psychological analysis of you as a personality. So congratulations, you're an optimist. Because we have an inner joke within our crew. the people who watch the film, and judging by what they think of the final scene, you can say whether they're an optimist or pessimist, because obviously the final scene is more or less a scene with an open ending, and everyone can see, what they want to see in that final scene. But I'm, doing these Q&As, I often get asked about it, and sometimes I give the answer, sometimes I don't. Now I'm in the mood to give you the answer. So since in my version of how the film ended, Anna has basically taken her life away in the final scene, and sort of she jumped. So judging by that, I don't think she's worried about what's happening in Ukraine right now. But if we transfer the situation to 2023, I think it would have been a very different story. And to be honest, I don't even know in which way, because the lives of every Ukrainian have changed so much over this last year. The things that mattered don't matter anymore. And sadly enough, death has become very ordinary. It's a horrible thing to say. But, if 3 years ago losing your child was a tragedy, now this is just, the news that we get every day, that thousands of people die and thousands of children die. So, it's very hard for me to answer this question, but I know that this story would have been very different in last year and this year.
I think it would be a very different kind of perception of the audience in Ukraine once they see the film, and I think it will likely to strike some notes of their own experience, if there is any. So there was another question. Yeah.
Hi, Christina. Thanks a lot for the movie. It's amazing. And it's such a shame that I think it was kind of poorly advertised in Ukraine because, I only know it because I work in films. That's why I know, but probably as an ordinary citizen, I wouldn't. And as we mentioned, full-scale invasion, I want to say that the production designer of this movie, Vlad Dudko, is currently on the front line. And this is maybe some other people from the crew as well. And it's really heartbreaking. And I can't think of anything else while watching the movie. And also, as you said about the feminist perspective, I also think that it's a really pivotal thing about this movie as well. And I think it makes it even more powerful that there are only women characters mostly. And I think it really contributes to Ukrainian movies, because we don't have much of women's stories yet, and we're getting more and more every year. But anyway, my question was about how were you preparing for the movie? Like the story, for example, as she works as paramedic, like were you consulting, and they were using particular language, like professional terms and stuff, and maybe from legal perspective as well, like this court situations and police. So how did you split job with other screenwriters? Did you have experts on the team, or how was it? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just in terms of your first commentary, there are a lot of the people who worked with this film are now on the front lines, or they are refugees. So the war has really touched a lot of us. As for the preparation, so I have spent about 2 weeks working with not really working, but kind of observing the ambulance. But I was with a team of 3 doctors, going to different calls with them. So I would spend like a couple of days, just the whole day working with them and noting down and seeing what they're doing, sometimes even helping, because they at some point they forgot that I don't know what how to actually save people. But then when we were already in pre-production, the actors who were playing the doctors, so Anna and Maxim, they also spent a couple of days working with the ambulance. And then we also had a consultant who coincidentally is the mother of Katia. So the mother of the actress who played the little daughter works as a paramedic. And she kind of consulted us with all the dialogue. So sometimes we would just, run through it with her and see, would they say this, would they say that? So this is concerning the paramedic side. As for the lawyers, well, we just spent again time talking to real lawyers and asking what are the options for this kind of situation, what kind of scheme could have been happening. And the unfortunate reality of Ukrainian law system is that a lot of the things are possible. And I was actually quite happy when I showed the film to the Ukrainian audience, and there were a few lawyers who actually came to me and they said, it's totally believable, like this whole, because I was also a bit scared that maybe it's pulling the strings a little bit, but they said that it was absolutely believable and 100% doable. So in this way, it's all working with consultants. And as for advertisement in Ukraine, we haven't released the film in Ukraine yet. So we only had we premiered it last year in Locarno, and then we were kind of on a festival circuit, and we only showed it once during the Kharkiv Meet Docs, and then again we were part of Odessa, but Odessa was not Odessa Film Festival, which is one of the main Ukrainian film festivals. But because of the war, it wasn't taking place in Ukraine this year; it was taking place in Warsaw. So technically, again, it wasn't really a Ukrainian screening, but I think later this year, maybe in the autumn, we're going to have a release, a cinema release.
Thank you. Christina, there's something else that I'm also kind of really curious to hear about. When I was watching Anna's reaction to everything that's sort of happening, I was thinking about this sort of fight, flight, or freeze mode. And what I was noticing is that she freezes in the beginning, and she's really kind of stoic in a way and very not emotional. So she's she's sort of like appearing to be not giving into these emotions. And then she has these opportunities which we see in the film when Marina comes to her. And then Marina's mother comes to her, and she doesn't take that opportunity for revenge. So I was wondering about that. Well, why do you think those decisions?
Well, because I mean, I'm not sure if I missed something, but the last sentence was, why didn't she take those opportunities for revenge, right?
Yeah, so why didn't she take an opportunity for revenge, and she sort of like was in this freeze mode before the very kind of last moment when she makes a choice of action?
Well, because I mean, for her, going for revenge, there was a certain, as I said before, there was a certain process of her transformation to get to the point of actually even considering it. So as you have noticed, and as you have said at first, when the death happens, she's sort of in a very natural psychological state of shock, where when something bad really happens, she cannot quite process what happened. So that's why her emotions are quite. She doesn't feel anything. She doesn't know what she's feeling. It's a protective system of our body. And then kind of through triggered by the conversation with the policeman, who kind of drags her back into the reality of this whole of the bureaucratic reality of the accident. She sort of channels the energy and she channels her grief into this fight for justice. So first, she tries to get this justice through the legal system and through, well, let's say, in a normal, civilized way. And it's only when she realizes that, you know, she will not get this justice in this way, that's when she starts considering the revenge. So, and as you said, you know, when she met Marina at the funeral, when she met Marina's mothers at home, you know, there was still this hope for a legal settlement. There was still some hope for a legal justice, which she didn't get in the end. And of course, you know, that was on top of that, she received sort of a betrayal from her family. She received a betrayal from her, well, more or less partner. And she sort of lost herself in her profession. So all of these things adding up slowly kind of pushed her to the edge of crossing the line of actually, you know, considering the physical revenge on Marina.
Yeah. And there's also, so I know that you worked on a short film that was preceding this film a couple of years ago, which was called Solatium. And what I was wondering is, why did you go for a very different title? How is Katia seems quite like a regular question, you know, and Solatium was more of a, I don't know, a title that was kind of getting deep into the core.
Well, I was a lot younger when I made a short film. I was maybe I wanted to be more pretentious. I'm joking. I think I mean, it was a different kind of film, and it was a short film, and you know, of course, the Solatium was only 10 minutes. It had a similar conflict at its core. But of course, it was only 10 minutes, and you cannot really talk about the themes of grief, of especially of mother's grief, of vengeance, of the difficult moral dilemmas in 10 minutes. So basically, as soon as I made that film, I kind of realized that there's so much more to explore here, and I would like to make a feature. And I started developing a feature pretty much straight away. And then at a certain point during the development of the feature, there was a moment when the script was written from two perspectives. So it wasn't just Anna's perspective. There was like half of the script was Anna and the other half of the script was Marina. They were kind of the parallel stories. And I mean, I don't want to go deep into details, but for that version of the script, the title How Is Katia in a way made a lot more sense than for this version of the film. But you know, when you're working on a project for 5 years and you have given it a title, at some point you really get married to it. It's like you have a child and you named your child Peter, for instance, and then in 5 years you decided he's not Peter anymore. It's very difficult to do it. So that's why we kind of, even though How Is Katia is not so perfect anymore as it used to be, it is a different version of the script, but we couldn't let go of the title.
And it's also probably a little bit of a tribute to the character that doesn't get to live through the film. Well, there's one more question here. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was as you say, a film that showed huge humanity. But I also wanted to ask you two things. One is about the way you used kind of almost quasi-documentary techniques in the filming, in terms of following the characters through corridors and kind of a lot of stills, just watching discussions. So a lot of sort of documentary techniques. And it felt like you were also using those to examine in quite a realist way the corruption in some of the systems in Ukraine. You also showed the professionalism and the humanity of some of the systems in Ukraine. And I was kind of curious as to what you're thinking now and how you might use that expertise, if you like, and that skill, your eye, in examining not so much during the conflict, although it could be, but also in terms of recovery, as we hope and pray, the kind of both how Ukraine tackles that corruption, which is pernicious, as well as building the humanity of people's resistance, resilience, their spirit. And I just wondered if you're able, and my related question was, you haven't shown it in Ukraine yet. Is there a risk in terms of exposing that kind of rottenness in the system, especially now, given a huge and understandable level of nationalism and defense of Ukraine? That's quite a tension, I think. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll start from the second question. This is also a question I got asked a couple of times, especially in Western Europe. And I always get really surprised when I get this question because no, there is no risk to show this film in Ukraine. And moreover, this film was funded 100% by the state money. So we have no censorship of this sort. I would say the only censorship that could have possibly existed would be if I made a film showing, I don't know, showing Russians as the good guys. I don't know if this crazy idea suddenly came to my head, then probably there would be some questions for me. But in general, I think that Ukrainian society is ready to discuss these kind of issues. We understand that, this is one of the problems that we have, and we have to deal with it. And we have to have this discussion, and we have this discussion a lot in the media, let's say in the journalistic realm. We don't have it that much in the arts, but it's starting more and more these days. So no, in this way, I don't think there is any risk. And the one festival screening that we had last autumn again proved that there was absolutely no problem about it. As for your first question, I mean, it's hard for me to say how this skill would work with today's reality, because personally, I'm not ready to talk about the war, and I'm not ready to talk about Ukraine today. Ukraine, the war is still in progress. It is, I believe that again, this is my subjective point of view, I think that the only filmmakers who have the right to make films about what's happening right now are those who are working in the documentary. And as for fiction, I think we need time. We need time. First of all, the war needs to be over, and then after the war is over, we need time to process what happened, and we need some reflection on the situation. I don't think that anything that could be done on the theme of war today would be of any sense. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if that's the right phrase. But unfortunately, right now, we can see that there is a huge boom in actually making war films. All of these films are portraying the horrors, the physical horrors of war. They copy a lot of narrative plot lines of the actual things that happened. But this is only the surface. Below that, there is no meaning of what is happening to these characters, and what does this, what apart from the horrible things that are happening to these people, what does all of this mean? No one has the answers yet, because it's just too early. So we'll see. Maybe time will pass, and a couple of years, hopefully the war will be over soon. And when I will reflect on the situation, and when I will have some sort of understanding of this whole period, maybe then I'll have a better understanding of how I can use my style to portray it. But I'm not ready to do it yet.
I think with the Ukrainian film, there is also quite a very thin line about what to show and what not to show. And what I've seen is that there are a lot of kind of brutality and violence that is being shown very explicitly in the fiction film as well. And in your film, I've noticed this I don't know if it's a tool that you've used, but every time it was getting to the point of violence or brutality, you cut away and you go to the next thing. So it sort of doesn't throw you or doesn't kind of make you suffer as an audience. I don't know if that was your intention specifically.
I think this is something intuitive and something that is just sort of my choice of what I think is worth showing and what is not worth showing. When it comes to things like, you know, the accident with Katia, for instance, you know, it is so much stronger to show what's happening with Anna than to show the actual accident, because in the eyes of the audience, anything they will create in their own heads will always be more horrible than what I will show on the screen. And, you know, to me, again, if I showed the accident on the screen, it would just seem vulgar to my taste. I guess same with, I'm not sure which other violent scenes you're referring to, but in general, especially with how this film is shown, with how this film is constructed, because it's constructed from the point of view of the protagonist of Anna. You're always with her. You never see what she doesn't see. So this is one of the important things for me, and I was trying to kind of to show the story through her eyes and to be as close as possible to her emotionally. Also because this kind of a story, in a way, is a much better story for books, because this is a story of moral degradation, where a lot of the like a big part of the struggle is actually happening internally inside of Anna. And it's so much easier to just write a book about it and to have the inner monologue. It's much more difficult to show this inner struggle on the screen where things needs to be happening. So choosing to be as close to Anna as possible and choosing to show the world through her perspective was sort of my way of trying to build this connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final question? Yeah, just final question here.
Hope it's not too late. Thanks, first of all, for the opportunity of watching this film that you've given us. It's been a powerful experience. Can I ask you further about precisely the struggle, and as a struggle? Because something I really appreciate about the film is how you're using silence, and especially in takes, in long takes between two characters and two shots, how dialogues are, you know, there's these moments of silence before Anya responds or the other person responds. I'm thinking about the meeting between Irina and Anya in the kitchen in particular. And I wonder, first of all, how you work with the actors in terms of using those silences is to create ambivalence, because there's a lot of ambiguity that's going on what's not said, for instance, in that kitchen scene. And maybe unrelated, when you said that this could have been the two stories from Marina's point of view and Anya's, I actually was thinking Anya's and Irina, because that meeting is so ambivalent. Like they're like mirrors of each other, the way you are using the lighting and the way they're sitting around the table and talking. At one point, I was thinking whether you're trying to make a point about, you know, not obviously it's not about black and white and who's evil and who's, but actually this communication or non-communication between two women that could happen in each other place. I wonder if you can comment on that, on the use of silence and maybe on that scene. Yeah, thank you.
Well, yeah, that scene was one of the first scenes that I wrote. It's also one of the scenes that I very much like, because to me, this is a scene between two mothers. Each of them is right in a way. Each of them is protecting their own child. And it was also important for me to not to make, because of course Irina is the real antagonist here, not Marina, not the daughter, right? Irina is the antagonist of the story. It was important for me not to make this character male, so that it would be a story about this, you know, angelic saint, doctor woman, and a bad rich guy. it was important for me to have, you know, a story about two equals. So yeah, in this way, I think you noticed the true thing that I was trying to show, that they are equals, and that each of them is right in a way. As for the first question, the use of silence, I mean, the silences were not constructed specifically. It was just a process of working with actors and you know, trying to see what works in the scene and what doesn't. In general, you have probably noticed that each scene is shot in a single take. And that means that I used to have many takes for each scene. So in comparison to other directors, who usually have, I would say, I mean, maybe up to 10 takes maximum. For us, 25 takes was the average per scene. But it was needed because, you know, we had difficult scenes up to 7 minutes long, where many things were happening. And when you're doing a single take, so many things have to go right. Like it's not only the actors, but it's also the camera, it's the sound, it's many things that have to be perfect. And so when I'm doing all of these takes, I'm building up. I'm working with the actors as well, because I mean, it was my debut film. I didn't have a budget to spend a lot of the time in rehearsal rooms with the actors in advance. In a way, working with them on set was my only time working with the actors. So while I'm doing these takes, and while, you know, we're working for the choreography of the camera or other things, I'm also working with the actors and with the performances, and which each take we build up those performances, and we take what we like and we get rid of what we don't like, and we try different things. So again, you know, the silences, it wasn't like, you know, I would just tell the actors, you know, be silent here for 3 minutes. No, it was just a natural chemistry that was happening between them.
Fantastic. Christina, we could be talking for ages because there's quite a lot of interesting things, but thank you so much. And thank you everybody who was coming here today. All of the donations will be given to the charity that is helping people around Kiev. And Christina is also in Kiev. So we wish you all the best. And thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.